Hello everyone, welcome to our series, The Lightbulb Sessions. The Great British Entrepreneur Award, in association with BT Skills for Tomorrow, have designed a free live stream series of Lightbulb Sessions to support small businesses and entrepreneurs with insightful and advice-driven sessions, featuring some of the UK's brilliant entrepreneurial minds to illuminate your path to entrepreneurial success. You can find out more about BT Skills for Tomorrow by heading to their website at www.bt.com/skills for tomorrow, or by clicking on the link in the comment section. In today's session, Great British Entrepreneur Awards founder Francesca James will speak with co-founder and former COO of Social Chain, Dominic McGregor. With their staff at the heart of their business model, Social Chain hired a head of happiness to assist staff with everyday feelings about the workforce. Together, Dominic and Francesca will open up on the debate of people versus profit and look into how to manage the during the session. If you have a question you'd like to ask Dominic, you can pop this in the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen, and we'll do our best to answer these throughout the session. And with that, I'll pass over to our host today, Francesca James.
Thank you so much, Chloe, and thank you for joining us today, Dom. It's a pleasure to see you, albeit virtually. I know it's been a really interesting few months for you and lots of changes going on. I think before we get into the heart of the topic that we're looking to discuss today, if you could tell us a little bit about the Social Chain story and how it started and about the business.
Yeah, thanks for having me on today. And yeah, I love participating in these events, and you guys have built up fantastic awards, and as an alumni of the award, it's a pleasure to be invited back to host this. So thank you for having me. So for those who don't know Social Chain, we started off in Manchester. The business actually was founded 6 years ago this week. So it's kind of a nostalgic period to look back and be like, oh, 6 years ago, this was all starting up, and so much has changed in that period of time. So we started basically as a marketing agency. We kind of fell into marketing because we had started loads of big social media pages. So we realized that we were pretty good at social media, and the world 6 years ago wasn't very good at social media. So we saw an opportunity to help brands and other businesses scale through social media. So 6 years ago, it sounds crazy now, but Instagram, Facebook, brands didn't have these channels and didn't see them as important. You can't imagine what that looks like now. With people quickly jumping on the likes of TikTok and podcasting. And we kind of grew the business as two 21-year-old founders by bringing in more people who had experience in social media. And back then, the kind of people who had that kind of experience was people who had done it themselves by building big social media communities, who tended to be same age of us, so 19, 18, 20, 21. And when we got to about 25 staff, the average age of our business was 21. I think the oldest person within the business was a 25-year-old, and we were like, wow, God. So we really were just a bunch of kids trying to make the social media thing happen. And over the next couple of years, we kind of rode the wave of social media growing and the rise of influencers. And we were the first kind of business to capitalize on influencer marketing in the UK and across Europe. And this led us to evolving the business from just a marketing agency to become a media business, where we owned and operated our own media channels, and eventually led us to launching our own products, realizing the fact that we know how to use social media marketing. We were marketing some of the biggest brands in the world, and we could then apply that knowledge to ourselves. So we launched e-com aspects, Amazon businesses, where we take that kind of theory that we've been practicing and working on with clients and apply it to our own businesses. And for me, this year was the last year of that. The business, as I said, the business was officially founded 6 years ago, but the social media space, I've been working in it for almost 9-10 years now. So I was ready for a bit of a change in direction for myself, and it kind of was the success story of what we set out to achieve those 6 years ago, was to take it to where it is today. And for me, that was what I kind of deemed as success. So I knew it was ready for the business to go in a different direction, and for myself to go in a different direction.
Fantastic. And what a success story it is, because, the last news story I read is that Social Chain have got 750 Social Chain team members, which is phenomenal growth in the time frame that we're talking about. But I know that we're talking today about a particular role that you guys hired and put someone in position of, but you did that at a reasonably early stage in the business compared to where it is now. So where did the idea come from to introduce a head of happiness, and when did that happen?
Yeah, so that's a great question. At the end of our kind of first proper year, so we were about 9 months old. We were sat around having a kind of chat about what the next year looked like. So I think it was probably this time 5 years ago, we were thinking, okay, what do we need for the business to grow? And all the obvious kind of places came up, said, well, we need some more people who can do design work. We need more people who can create videos. And one of the pieces which always kind of we kind of focus on as a business was the culture. And we simply said, we need someone to make sure everyone's happy. And that for us was like a kind of statement where, okay, what is that job title? What is the role of someone who makes everyone happy? And we just thought, oh, it's head of happiness. So, it wasn't anything more than kind of, a brainstorm of the team at the time of like, okay, what kind of functionalities in the business do we need? And just before Christmas that year, we posted out, we are looking for a head of happiness. This is the remit. So their responsibility was, making sure the office was intact, making sure the office was special, making sure that everyone kind of felt welcome when they came to the office and had everything they needed. But more importantly, was kind of on the side of everyone in the team and making sure they were happy. So any personal issues they were going through, any questions or challenges they had, that was the first person for them to turn to. We posted the job out, and people called it a marketing campaign, but it was nothing more than a sincere attempt to try and make everyone in the business happy. So we got over 400 applicants, and after a 6-week process, we dwindled it down to 2 people. And just after New Year in January 2015 now, we appointed our head of happiness. And for us, at the time, we kind of had no, and what we always in hindsight look back on is we had no experience in what to do in business, which kind of gave us a fresh pair of eyes on how things could be done. So the fact that we had no experience was actually our biggest advantage. And as we look back now, I kind of still think, as we said today in having this discussion, that it was one of the most important hires in the business.
Fantastic. And I know you sort of talked about the general responsibilities that person would have. So making sure the office is a special place and making sure that the team are happy. But what does that sort of look like on a day-to-day basis? And I think, how did you decide that was a full-time position rather than to sit as part of someone else's job?
Yeah, of course. And it's really important that role evolved so much across the last 5 years. When we first started the business, we had a lot of young people in the office who were at work for the first time. So her role was a lot of things, arranging travel for them to come in, in some instances communicating with their parents to make them feel comfortable that this is actually a real job, to making sure that everyone in like I said in the office felt like the office had something for them. So the food was food there. They were working on partnerships with other businesses in Manchester. And if someone was struggling with their workload or struggling with their personal life, they would have someone to turn to. So it was a role which, realistically could have been done by somebody else. Yeah, you're completely right. But then it would only ever be half done. So what we discovered is that by having someone full-time doing it, she created more of a role for her. So that role broadened so much over the first 2-3 years. And every single time, obviously, someone joined the business, her responsibilities increased. She became the kind of go-to person for any personal issues, work issues, and essentially became the person to protect the culture. As things were moving so fast, we would have many instances where we felt the culture could be compromised. So, we introduced so many kind of methodologies to try and improve our culture and keep it as the best place to be and best place for people to work. So introducing Friday creative review, introducing mental health sessions with therapists, introducing Wednesday book clubs, all them kind of responsibilities fell under her to protect what we saw as special. All our kind of community projects that Social Chain ran in terms of girls football, boys football. We had a running club where we did every single kind of running event. We had a book club, as I mentioned. More clubs and communities that you can imagine what we ran, and she was responsible for running them, basically.
And you mentioned that this was a role that you actually hired for a number of years ago. So how big was the team at that point? And what was their reaction when you first told them that there was going to be a head of happiness role created and someone coming into the organisation with that as their sole remit?
Yeah, great question. I've not had that question before. I think everyone was as naive as us. I think that was just kind of a cool. That's what we need. We need someone to make sure that we're happy. We need someone to make sure that all these things are fulfilled in the business, all the kind of perks and stuff, and the kind of onboarding and education of people within the business was kind of paramount. So it was just a kind of that sounds cool kind of attitude that we should do this. So yeah, I think when we brought Kira in, there was about 25 of us, which is still a big team. I think at that time 5 people were working from home, so we had to kind of make sure they felt part of the community as well, and 20 people were in the office. So it was a very kind of mixed way of working already. So she had to make sure that everyone who was external felt part of the business and welcomed, and that any team events were involved in them as well. So yeah, it was a small team, and it was I think it kind of signposted that we were trying to do something different, and that we had no experience in this business thing, so we were trying to just forge our own paths and just try and see what worked. And we had a lot of failures early days where we tried something that may not work, and this kind of probably fell into that category where we think we should have a head of happiness. Let's see what it looks like and see if it works out.
And you mentioned that Kira came in when there were sort of around 25 of you. When you go to 25 is one job, 750 is quite another. Has that job turned into a team or sort of department within Social Chain as the business has grown?
Yeah, so it has. So it completely evolved from one person being responsible for everything to a kind of global role. So once we opened in Berlin in US, she kind of took on a global role, and we hired someone responsible for happiness in the US. Again, was probably about our 20th hire in the US. Again, kind of same kind of growth story. Who was then responsible for that remit in the US. In the UK, we had 3 happiness managers and Kira, who was responsible there, and also someone from HR team who kind of worked on more of the kind of formalities and the legalities around any HR issues. And then in Germany, we had a team of 4 as well. So it branched out into a kind of hybrid between what people would see as traditional HR, where any kind of grievances or any problems could be dealt with in a professional manner, but also between us maintaining the specialist of social chain by having the happiness team at the front and center of that responsibility, rather than I've had we've all seen The Office. We've all seen the comedy plays on what HR can be like. I've fortunately not been in many businesses where I've seen that firsthand, but there is a stigma, there is a kind of stereotype around that kind of profession, which is changing. But I think with us, we kind of always had it with happiness and community and our kind of culture at the forefront, and not a formal HR process.
Brilliant, thank you. And I follow you on LinkedIn, and I know that it's something that you're passionate about and that you talk about quite a lot, but mental health well-being seems to be something that a lot of people are now talking about, certainly far more than businesses were back when you hired a head of happiness. But do you think that there is a bit of a discount between businesses that are saying that they're doing these initiatives and putting things in place to ones that actually have that really at their core?
Yeah, completely. I think I think it's very, very difficult to implement any policy or any measures around this kind of place if the businesses don't care. I've heard a lot of horror stories of corporate companies who say they care about well-being, who say they care about flexible working and other aspects, and they just don't. It's more of a kind of tick box exercise to say, okay, we are trying to work on this, blah 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 blah. I've only seen examples where leaders in the business, so senior people in the business, do care about it, that they implement policies which people do need. So a year ago, corporate policies were around mental health was flexible working, allowing you to work from home for one day. If a company listed that as a perk now, they'd probably be laughed at, because that's just not how people view flexibility. It's actually the antithesis of flexibility, because it's completely unflexible. You're allowed one day. That is the most unflexible you could get. So yeah, I mean, it's really difficult to change an organization. Some of these businesses have been around for hundreds of years, and they do things in a certain way, be it to please shareholders, be it to investors, managers, etc., etc. What we're seeing now, fortunately, is a bunch of young companies which are coming through, who started with this kind of philosophy, who started with the kind of culture as a central point, as a well-being as a central point, who are now growing to a point where they're attracting people who care about these things to their organizations. And for us, it was something which we started with. It was at the core of the business. And when we kind of first opened the office, it was trying to create a place where we could see as home, not as a place where people would come to work. We tried to make a place which was enjoyable and happy to be around. So for us, it's kind of been something from day one. So when you come to 6 years in, when you introduce something new, people know it's coming from the right reasons. There's no question around it. There's no skepticism. It's authentic. Big businesses who have not done this before, who have a certain way, can't just change overnight because of the way they're set up.
Yeah, and you mentioned work-life balance, and then you also talked then about the fact that a key component of this role was making the office feel like home. Now, obviously, both of those concepts have changed quite a lot in this year. I think that work-life balance has never been more important, with the fact that we're all, or the majority of us, are living in our offices. And I do appreciate that you're now removed from Social Chain, but just to understand how would you have evolved a role like that to be applicable to today's world, where we're not all coming together in an office that looks cool and ticks those boxes?
Yep. That is a really tough question, because fortunately I've not had to think about it, and I've been able to dodge that. Part of me would want to say I wouldn't want to. I've been sat, like most people at home, thinking about the world, thinking about what's going on, and doing work from home. And as much as the balance has felt better, I've missed people. I missed what was there, the kind of seeing people. When we first transitioned to working from home, I probably spoke to the 5 people who were direct reports to me, and didn't speak to the other 700 people, because you just don't. There's no reason to. Communication becomes linear. I speak to you, who speaks to the team. So it's like I didn't like that. I miss the office. I miss the environment. That being said, obviously we had our business with complete freedom already. So people weren't crying out for it. They weren't crying out for drastic change. We had people working from home already. We had people working remotely, so you could work how you wanted to work. My preference was seeing people's faces, being in rooms with them, connecting with them. That was what I loved. That's the passion I enjoyed, and it was my purpose. My purpose became the people in the business. That's what I got out of bed for every single morning, was for them. You take them away from it and you put them in behind computer screens, I don't have the same purpose. And that was really hard for me to personally to adjust to, because I felt really lost. I felt really, really lost when this all started. Now, I mean, I hope the office, and I know the office will return in a different way. The role of the office will evolve. It has to. It won't be a case of having desks and desks of people sat there almost chained to it in some instances. There's going to be a new office for 2021. I have actually started to think long and hard what that could look like. I think there's going to be some real changes in the kind of landlord space, who could really do with creating an environment which is designed for the new world. Because although the likelihood is the virus will go away, the way people have seen that they enjoy working from home and the advantages they've seen working will not. So I do think that what we had before this virus was kind of a really, really good foundation for people working from home and autonomy. But I would probably go at making the office even more unmissable, making the environment even more sensory, improving aspects of on-site capabilities. So things like having food on site, having a therapist on site, or having nurseries on site, or utilizing that space that's not necessarily going to be for office space, but for other aspects, which will pull people back to it when they want to. I get the flexibility, and you can introduce flexibility with an office, but you can't introduce community through screens.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to remind everyone that's listening, if you want to submit a question, you can do so through the Q&A. I've got one here from Kate, who asked Dom, do you find that giving employees freedom is the best way to motivate them? Because I read somewhere that Social Chain lets staff write their own contracts and have as much holiday as they like.
Yeah, completely. I mean, why not? We're all adults. Social Chain have had unlimited holiday policy since day one. We trust people that they understand their responsibilities, and if you work on a project by project basis, your job is to deliver the project. That you can do that however you want to. If you prefer to work from 5 at night to 5 in the morning, do it. I don't think when I came back to saying that we had the ultimate flexibility, that was the kind of thing we included, was their own contracts, write your own contracts, write the hours you want to work, write where you want to work, write when you want to work. The issue we faced with that, which is a very, issue outside our control, is people have been conditioned by other businesses, by previous experiences, that would do 9 to 5. So they would be like, they didn't have the confidence to speak and say, this is the way I want to work. Hopefully now, this kind of pandemic and changing of working environments will see people who can work how they want to work. So they will be able to say, okay, I want to work like this. So can I have that written into my contract? So we had that complete flexibility. It made everyone feel responsible, made feel like a responsible adult. I think there's nothing more patronising than treating someone with little respect and not entrusting them to do their role, to kind of demotivate people. So that was always something which we saw as a kind of, again, as something we took for granted, and people, would just do their work. We trusted them. It was simple. It was as simple as that.
Fantastic. Well, the next question I've got is, I know that you've brought in all of these policies, these people, for the right reasons, which is obviously to look after the staff, your well-being of your staff. But I'm interested to see is that what trend did you see that in doing that, it actually helped and supported the business's overall goals as well? Did you see improvement? Did you see, what was your experience?
Yeah, completely. That's a great question. And although when we kind of set off on this mission, that them factors were probably secondary, as we grew, they became much more primary. So we saw that, on the holiday point, people took less holiday. We gave them a limited holiday, they took less because they didn't see it as a target, and they saw with the flexibility they had in their work life, and that the fact that they enjoyed what they were doing, that they took less holiday. It wasn't a target. If somebody gives someone 25 holidays, they will get 25 holidays. They will maximize their 25 holidays. We had people who were just kind of so happy with their work-life balance that they weren't taking that many holidays, that we had to tell them to take more holidays. We had to have someone to go on holiday for 2 weeks because they hadn't taken enough holiday, but they were so happy because their balance was fantastic in their life. They didn't feel like they needed time. So in terms of productivity, it massively increased productivity across the business because people were just happy and content with the relationship between business and employee. So that was something which we were shocked when we did the analysis on. A key part which people always ask is, recruitment. It does make recruitment easier. It makes, we never had to pay for a recruiter. People wanted to work for us. We had a great kind of network of people who would refer friends, refer other people. That was just really, really simple. We never had to really compete against other businesses because people wanted to be here. I mean, it's just countless when you look at it from a kind of that happiness that was then passed on to clients. When you work in a client service environment, if you're kind of happy and content in yourself, you work better, you service clients better. Amount of commitment people would give above and beyond what was expected because they felt part of the journey was astronomical. We've had so many people up until the early hours of the morning trying to complete pitches because they feel part of the kind of collective responsibility for the kind of community. So yeah, including that marketing, people were always looking at us and said that we're intrigued with what we were doing and whether it was working. So the business impacts were unparamount. And I think the biggest one people never really look on is if you're a marketing director or a CMO of a big company and you're trying to change the direction of that company and you want to appear more on trend, edgier, you want to work with a company which is like that. So you don't want to go and work at a stuffy agency which is kind of past it. You want to work with someone who's vibrant, up and coming, and got that right kind of attitude. So you can go and say to your CEO or the board, "This is who we're working with. This is what they do. This is what they stand for." And that was kind of an unspoken about kind of brand alliance between us and our clients, is that they wanted to be renowned to work with someone cutting edge. And we were cutting edge with our work, we were also cutting edge with our approach to business, which they admired.
Well, that was actually going to be my next question, and I was going to ask that. Social Chain have worked with some of the, the biggest companies out there, and I was going to say that I totally understand the appeal for those brands to come and work with Social Chain, because not only the quality of work, but the reputation you have for being a forward-thinking employer. But have you found that any of them have taken sort of lessons from working with Social Chain in the way that they deal with people within their own organisations?
I think inspiration for is all around us. So I love to think that we've been the inspiration for a bit of change in people's work environments. We took inspiration from some people who were doing it really well, like Amazon. So yeah, I mean, I don't know the ins and outs of a company's operating models and the way they treat their staff, but I like to think that there's some businesses around there that I've looked at what we did and thought, hey, we don't need to follow the script. We can try and do things our own way. I would encourage rather that attitude than copying what we did, because if you take those principles of we don't need to do things the way they've always been done, you can create something better. And no doubt, I'm looking back at something we started 5-6 years ago. The world's changed since then. If someone comes along with those principles now, that they don't need to follow what's been done before, they don't need to follow the Social Chain model, they don't need to follow the Google model, that they just follow their own model, they will come up with something better. So yeah, I think I would rather those principles of rational from first principle, like why are we doing this, why are we trying to achieve that, as the inspiration, rather than someone saying let's do what Social Chain did. That would be my honest approach. I think if you copy and paste something, you then lose the authenticity. But if you come up with your own reasons and rationales for developing something which works for you, then it'll last longer.
Thank you. And I was going to ask you, there's a lot of businesses within our community that, at the very small side, so maybe startups, a couple of people. Obviously, it's not the right time necessarily for them to introduce, their second or third staff member as someone that's solely responsible for happiness. But what things would you, if you were in the position where you were starting again now and it was just Dom and Steve, what would you put in from the very beginning, I guess, in this new world?
You'll probably be able to tell how much I've changed over the last 6 years, but the first thing I would bring in would be someone responsible for finance. But yeah, that would be a part of me which has changed, and realizing the importance of that. But I think that's because I understand that the part that we do so well. So we were that culture, we were that brand. So we need we having that in ourselves was what drove the business forward. And that came from us having a real clear direction on who we wanted to be and how we wanted to be perceived. We wanted to create a business which we would want to turn up to every single day. We were 21. We weren't going to be at our desks at 9 o'clock. That wasn't the way we were going to work. We might be there. We might turn up at 10:30, 11, but we might stay till 9. That was in our DNA. That was in the way we'd kind of worked for the last 2-3 years together. When we started Social Chain, we didn't want that to change. We didn't want to lose our kind of freedom and sense of control over the situation. And then we realized that we didn't have to, because we were in charge of that direction ourselves. So we just built something that we would be happy with. We weren't morning people. We don't get up at the crack of dawn. I don't believe in these morning routines of successful people of waking up at 6, having a cold shower at 6:15, reading for half an hour, going to the gym. That's mythical. Everyone's different. Everyone works in their best ways. Everyone works differently. So I would say that is that knowing the environment you want to create, having a real sense within yourself what it looks like, and then plowing forward with that is a kind of main objective. Thank you.
And Dom, we've talked about the stuff that you've done at Social Chain. We've talked about some of the stuff that you would do given the opportunity again. What I'd love to see is, I know that you're very often sharing nice stories and insights of things that you've seen other people doing on LinkedIn in particular. What examples have you seen of businesses that have really got staff well-being and that just right? Good question.
Who have I seen that's a really good example? Snookered me a little bit here. I can't pull off the top of my head someone who I think is like a shining example, because everyone's so different, and you don't necessarily see how these inner workings get done. But I would say, look, big tech has pros and cons. Twitter have introduced, completely remote working from home. Pinterest the same. What I think is needed right now, and a lot of the big brands are doing really well, is clear communication, and be able to for people to plan. Lloyd's, for example, have said that they're not going to expect people back in the office until next year. So I think that right now we're all going through this kind of new world together, businesses which are given real strong communication on internally from what to expect of their staff and what the remit is, it been ones that have done well. I've seen some businesses which have been really supportive of staff on furlough, who have kind of made sure that they're all feeling touched in and kind of still part of the business. So what I'll do is I'll have a think about it and let you know afterwards the businesses which I can name, which have been really, really good, and ones that I kind of hold as a highlight of they treat their people well.
Fantastic, thank you. And as we sort of get towards the end of the session, just remind anyone, if they want to ask any questions, then please do so into the Q&A. There's a couple of questions that have come through on LinkedIn, Dom, that aren't quite relevant to this topic, so we've suggested that they connect with you on there and perhaps ask them. But I know that there's a lot of interest in our community in terms of alumni like yourselves who've had an incredible entrepreneurial journey. So, I mean, I guess just from a personal interest point of view, wanted to know what's next for Dom McGregor. What's the next chapter?
Yeah, great question. If you've got any answers, let me know. No, I'm joking. I'm fortunate enough to be able to take a bit of time to decide what direction I'm going in. I've kind of gone back to look at myself, ask myself what I enjoy, and decided to take a bit of studying. So I'm doing a university course at Oxford at the moment around history, which has really been taking up a lot of my time. I'm working with a few startup brands who are up and coming, some that are looking to raise some investment, some that are actually alumni of the winners of the awards as well, who have asked for a bit of advice, who I'm kind of guiding. So yeah, there's no clear path right now. I think for me, it's just relaxing, taking a bit of time, thinking about the world, the bigger picture. As I said to you before, I want to get back into a place where I'm surrounded by people. Anything that started right now would be, not that. So I'm willing to wait until the world settles down a little bit and this better normal is kind of determined before I kind of make a big jump into something.
Fantastic. Thank you. Well, Dom, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you this afternoon. You've had an incredibly exciting journey, and I'm really sure that the next chapter is going to be just as exciting. And we really look forward to following you on that journey. And we're thrilled to have you as part of the Great British Entrepreneur Awards community. So thank you so much for joining us today. Chloe, I'm going to pass back over to you.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Dom and Francesca, for joining us today and sharing your expertise and knowledge. You can join our next Lightbulb session at the same time next Thursday, as we'll be joined by founder of Influencer, Ben Jeffries, and influencer marketing manager, Shreddy, Law Lethbridge Hall, as they discuss how to use influencers to grow your business. If there is anything you'd like to catch up on from today's session, we'll be sent out a replay of this recording later on today. You can find the replay and future webinars at www.lightbulb-sessions.haysummit.com or by clicking on the link in the comments section. Thank you very much for joining us today, and thank you again, Dom and Francesca.
No problem. Thank you. Have a great day, everyone.